Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Arctic Monkeys. I'd always thought it was the Arctic Monkeys, titled Do I Wanna Know? And if we switch over to here, you'll notice that potentially my beard is a bit longer than in previous Weekly Monday videos. I initially kind of batch recorded a whole bunch of these in late September, early October. But I deleted the footage from my initial listen through of this and thoughts, which is, it was frustrating. So we're doing it again today. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Just as this is one of the tracks that students typically want to learn when they come to lessons. So let's go, let's do it. What do we got? I do like the asymmetry of the guitar parts. Really cool fuzzy bass tone as well.
Have you got color in your cheeks? Do you ever get that feel that you can't shift, the type that sticks around like summits in your teeth? Are there some aces up your sleeve? Have
Great
you
legato.
no idea that you're in deep? I dreamt about you nearly every night this week. How many secrets can you keep? 'Cause there's this tune I found that makes me think of you somehow, and I play it on repeat until I fall asleep, spilling drinks on my settee. Do I wanna know?
Great leading with the oscillation there.
Sorta hoping that you'd stay. We both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you. Never thought I'd call and run. You like you, 'cause I always do.
Interesting reverb.
Maybe I'm too busy being lost to fall for somebody new. Now I thought it through. Crawling back to you. So have you got the goods? Been wondering if your heart's still open, and if so, I wanna know what time it should. Simmer down and poker up. I'm sorry to interrupt, it's just I'm constantly on the cusp. I've tried.
Great layering there.
Kiss you. I don't know if you feel the same as I do. We could be together if you wanted to. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Out to see you go. Was sorta hoping that you'd stay. And we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you.
Oh, polar responses.
You've had a few, 'cause I always do. Maybe I'm too busy being lost to fall for somebody new. Now I thought it through. Crawling back to you. If this feeling flows both ways.
Artwork's kind of psychedelic, isn't it? And that's it. It was a very different experience listening through this the second time round. I do have, I assume to be very similar thoughts to the original sort of feedback I gave, but I'm going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. And so, welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named the Arctic Monkeys, or Arctic Monkeys, titled Do I Want to Know? What do we think this track is about? I think this track is about someone who is just still quite head over heels for another. They're on their mind constantly. They don't really want to know what the other person is doing, whether they moved on from them. They talk about getting together after having a few. I think there's the implication that they'd like for there to be something, but they also feel like it's something they wouldn't be able to speak about the next day. It's just a complicated relationship. I think a lot of people in their early 20s, etc. People will be able to relate to this. There's an audience for it. This track, after all, has about 1.8 billion views on YouTube. So clearly there is an audience for this kind of music. There is, relatability to it. And I think that's partially why this song works so well. I think that another reason that I feel the song works well, it's because of the vocals. Now, I'll be honest with you, as a listener, I'm not the biggest fan of the Arctic Monkeys. I haven't really enjoyed my time listening to any of the work beyond their earlier stuff because I liked how much spicier and quick it was. You think Look Good on the Dance Floor, something along those lines. When that single came out, I was in love with them. I loved the way they phrased that track, all the twists and turns and how unpredictable it was and the push behind it. I liked how raw and raucous it was. I didn't really return to the Arctic Monkeys for a long time afterwards. It just wasn't on my radar. As a teenager, I was into my hard rock and metal and stuff. And so when I heard the song for the first time, I think it was around the time I started teaching back in 2013, I wasn't really particularly satisfied with it. I don't think I spent any time actively listening, actually focusing on it, but hearing the guy sing, he's very comfortable in his head and chest voice, very pleasant tonality to it. There's some legato passages which are fantastic. There's some backing vocals that are in that higher head voice there, and we explore different ranges, and there's really articulate layering there that makes this track really interesting from a vocal harmonic perspective. But it's the affectation of it. It kind of does just sound like he's having a free-flowing kind of conversation with this person. You don't know if they're in the same room. You kind of imagine the conversation he's wanting to have with that person, without wanting to actually have it with that person. I just feel like the approach initially, I think this is probably going to be maybe a better video, because initially I was annoyed by how he didn't seem like he wanted to show that he cared, but I actually completely understand why that is now. I listened to it thinking, yeah, you don't want to be too bold with this. You're trying to act like you don't care, but you really do. It's a nuanced, very mature, complex approach to it that I appreciate. So I do think this will be more favorable. So I think ultimately, the vocals are handled well. They deliver the message quite neatly. It's just the music now. I mean, structurally at 4 minutes 25, it's outside of the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, but I don't necessarily mind that too much. I think there's a compelling sort of guitar riff that you have at the start with a very satisfying kind of tail. It's not too predictable. It's got movement that goes up and down the frets in a kind of bluesy, kind of pentatonic way, which is kind of neat, which, considering the minor tonality of the subject matter, makes sense for the guitar to represent that. And the bass in the low end represents the root notes really neatly within it. It's got a nice kind of buzz and fizz to it, which mirrors the kind of gritty, distorted, or I think it's a distorted tone to the guitar parts. There's just a lot of angst beside that without being too overwhelming. I like the kick clap. It's a very simple percussive pattern as well as we go through it there. It allows a lot of space with the asymmetry of the different guitar techs doing slightly different things in the mid to upper range. The vocals have plenty of space in the middle to kind of speak their truth, and we don't need to push too much for the attention of the listener. And so it's like a free-flowing sort of rhythm to the vocals, which makes it as more conversational. But the reason why that works is actually because of how consistent and sort of predictable the chord note accent of the percussion is, as well as what's going on in terms of the guitar riff being repeated. You have additional oscillating layers that kind of rise in the mix as you go into those later sections like the chorus or pre-choruses, and they're a nice sort of transitional sort of liminal device. And at that kind of different rhythm, it's like a 16th triplet or something like that. Yeah, 16th triplets. There's 6 per beat. It's just a fun adjustment rhythmically there. It's a texture which adds a bit of angst to the piece that is removed when we go into that sort of main hook section. Oh no, it continues. Oh, my bad. It's a little bit more subtle. You have these additional vocal layers in the chorus which add a sense of gravity to the situation. It's almost like all the people are coming together, all the thoughts in our head, and it's kind of making for a situation where it seems larger than life. It's just a nice way to help the hook stand out from a layering perspective. And there's like perceived dynamic range because of the additional layers in the mid to upper range there, with the lower parts in the verse being a bit more sort of somber to meet the mood of what's being told. And after that sort of that chorus section, we come back to it being more sort of like oriented around the kicks and snares and the lower vocals. You also have these crash patterns there that happen with the cymbals being included in that brighter element with the upper vocals there to kind of really articulate that upper range there. So I feel like there's great attention to detail from a sound design perspective. And you get like additional kind of call and responses later on there, or call and responses because there's main ones in the hook. There's call and response between the sides and the mains, and then you get repetitions of some of the main lines later on. There's like very subtle development. And I suppose the reason I'm kind of including what the instruments are doing alongside the structure is because they're just so integral and well connected to each other. You have like these kind of upper range guitar arpeggios near the end with the distorted parts there, but very subtle sub leads, just adding a bit of texture and kind of like a bit more kind of like a prettier kind of glow to it. It's still minor oriented, so it's still a presumably sad sounding kind of wistful piece, but it's almost like the song is simultaneously trying to appear downtrodden whilst working with under the blankets to try and still to make itself seem different. There's a distinct change in the perceived intensity between the end of the track and the start there, and that's testament to their ability to develop without it being too sort of apparent. It's a very smooth listening experience, and I think having a second listen it's one of the times where having another listen to a piece is integral to the enjoyment of it. You find more as you get used to the sort of the bass flavor. So ultimately, this piece is really cool in part because of the way, even though it's a longer piece and even though the vocals are the main sort of focal point the entire time, that they make these subtle changes in the background to really sort of elevate, but they also bring you back down when you need to so that things don't seem too samey, despite the consistency of the key signature bass lines and root notes within the chords and progressions involved. I mean, like, you do have changes. I think you do have the pre-chorus is a different chord progression, which is kind of nice, but we don't even overcomplicate it. Like, the part of the reason why I think this track is so accessible is because of the lack of a focus on extensions within the harmonies. You could have definitely used them to mirror the complexity of this, but I think we're actually trying to sort of focus on the minor tonality almost like exclusively, even though it's sort of power chordally related, even though we're trying to act more complicated than we are, because we are just sad about it. I think that makes it more accessible to listeners. Despite all the work done to sort of further complicate it, it's nonetheless easy to sort of like listen to and understand. And it makes it for a wider audience, I suppose. But for those people who pay attention to the little kind of like fun extra bits of ear candy, they get that too. And I just think also it's testament to their ability to produce well, that they're able to put those instruments in little sort of like oscillations and vibrations in there, illustrating the tension, kind of the nervousness or the frustration there, that kind of like tension is palpable there. It's really effective. So I think thematically, outside of the instrumental and sort of structural perspectives, it's minor oriented for the sake of it being well connected to the vocals. Things are consistent, and in general the performance is really tight with that note out of place. It's not a super technically kind of like mind-blowing kind of like example, but I don't think they needed to have that here. They wanted to make the story apparent, and they wanted to paint with colors outside of that, and they did that in spades. And they managed to put the blues in there without making it seem too sort of played out or generic. The studio production, recording, mixing, and mastering is the final step here, and I feel like there was just a really interesting reverb and kind of effects processing on the vocals. I really enjoyed the sound of it. It kind of sounded kind of like a mixture of a phone call, like kind of being set over a loudspeaker, with the higher vocals kind of sounding like they're oscillating around on head around the sides of the stereo field. The slightly different guitar takes he had on the sides of the stereo field as well made it sound much bigger. The bit of distortion that you have on the bass tone was great. The drums had a very kind of rustic, kind of grounded feel to them, or tone to them as well, which didn't make it seem overproduced. You had those other kind of like oscillations and vibrations there, and those extra guitar layers with like adequate filtering to not allow for any weird resonance resonant frequencies within the frequency spectrum. You had a track which expanded and contracted when appropriate with dynamic range. And it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting is handled. I've just started doing these with my sort of like quote unquote reaction videos. But this is something I'll also mention here. This is something I haven't done in most of the recent ones. There's gonna be one final video for the year on Polyphia that I have to learn the intro for on the guitar, which will be fun. But I'm going to talk about how this track maybe my perspective of it as a listener, as someone who is not an Arctic Monkeys fan. I appreciate the musicality involved. I think this is a really like a story that's well told and earnest and honest, and I appreciate the authenticity within the approach. I do like this song. I don't love it. I don't really relate to it. It's very still kind of to me like, I just don't think I like the person that they're describing here. I don't respect them, the caricature, the personality that's putting the story forward, but I appreciate how they're showing vulnerability and putting that into audio format in a way where they've clearly been widely successful. So I respect them for that. And I do think that's good that I've come around to it. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from an act named Arctic Monkeys, titled Do I Want to Know? And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians now at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SB Reviews. Spiderhands out.